Recently, I've been focusing on optimizing my desk setup at home, and I think I'm finally ready to share it. Now, I want to go over the products that I use, why I chose them, and whether or not they're actually worth the cost. And I also want to share a couple of Amazon finds that I've found, like this monitor riser, which cost a fraction of what companies like GroveMade would charge you. Not that I'd consider this all to be a budget setup by any means. I think excluding the NAS, this is somewhere in the ballpark of around $5,500 to $6,000 US, but most of that, to be honest, is from the MacBook Pro that I actually use, which is running this entire show. Now, with this setup, I want to focus on functionality first. So it involved three major things that could not be overlooked. It needs to be a one cable solution for my MacBook so that I have a place to stow it away and charge it, but also take the fuss away from when I actually need to get things done. I need to be able to access my home server, which is a 32 terabyte Synology NAS, so I need Ethernet connected to this setup no matter what. I also just want a clean and clutter-free layout. Being able to push my keyboard out of the way and having a clean tabletop is a must, since I do play around a lot with other devices from time to time to review, and I use my iPad for writing and organizing my day. So starting with the desk, this is actually the Flexispot E7. Flexispot is today's video sponsor, but hear me out. This video was actually written prior to Flexispot reaching out, and it would have included this desk regardless. I've worked with them in the past. They make fantastic products, and the desk that I'm using, I've owned for almost a year now. And I've actually had some comments previously asking about this desk and whether it's worth considering, and the short answer to that is 100%. This is genuinely a really good standing desk. It's very sturdy, there's little to no wobble even when it's raised, and it can hold a ton of weight. The maximum static load of the E7 is 355 pounds, which can not only hold everything that you need on it, but it could hold me as well if I ever decided I wanted to sit on it for some reason, but that's besides the point. I can also set height presets with their programmable control panel, and it does have a USB-A port on the side, which makes it super easy to use and allows me to charge devices like my phone. And like I said, I've had this desk for about a year. If I was to buy this today for this space, I probably would have opted for a lighter bamboo tabletop to give some more contrast to the setup, but that's just a preference in color. The desk is very durable. I'm not worried about it being damaged, and because it's 55 inches wide and 28 inches deep, it's allowed me to perfect this setup without it feeling cramped. Also, I used to think standing desks were kind of a gimmick. I've never really saw the point. I will say, if you do work from home, sitting down all day is not good for you. Being able to get up, stretch out a little bit, and get your blood flowing is a good way to stay healthy and productive. It does go up to 48.4 inches, so there's a lot of wiggle room depending on how tall you are. And what I like about these frames is that they aren't just designed to work with their own tabletops. So say down the line, you had some sort of live edge desk that you spent thousands of dollars on, you could use this frame, and I do feel like it will actually last you the test of time. The bamboo tabletop itself has a 5-year warranty, but they back the frame for 15 years, which is the most expensive and important component. So I am actually happy to see that. Now, I wouldn't work with them if I didn't believe in them or use these products. So with that being said, this is a fantastic option if you're looking for a cost-effective standing desk or even just a sturdier desk to upgrade. If you want to go ahead and check out Flexispot, there will be links in the video description and in the pinned comment down below. So thank you, Flexispot, for sponsoring this video. Now, on top of the desk, I'm using a desk pad. This is a pretty generic felt desk pad. It's not the highest quality. I wouldn't really recommend using these things with a mouse since they can cause issues with the sensor, though this one here is 120 by 60 centimeters, which means that it covers nearly the entire tabletop. This gives me a nice, soft place to rest my hands, as well as protect the desk from the sheer amount of stuff that I actually have on it, and I like the look a lot. Now, I do want to get something out of the way, and I have a huge bone to pick with this sort of thing. This is the Fenji dual monitor riser. It's like 70 bucks on Amazon. It's genuinely a very good product. It has aluminum feet. It is made from pressboard, but at 42.5 inches wide, it's wide enough to hold exactly what I need, and it does have a lot of storage and compartments. Now, ever since I've heard of those GroveMade risers, I've fallen in love with the look and the functionality of them, but holy man, they are expensive. I get that this thing isn't real wood, but I can't see how, at least from a quality perspective, this won't last you just as long. Like, it even has little grooves to prop up my iPad or store some pencils. I do keep my notebooks inside it as well, and this is where my MacBook actually sits. Huge life hack, by the way. I've actually attached these IKEA LED strips to the underside of the shelf, behind the shelf, and behind the desk, which make this whole thing look a lot more interesting. Now, I didn't know IKEA had LED strips for $5 until a couple of weeks ago, so there you go, pretty big pro tip. Now, let's move on to the peripherals now, I guess, since they kind of make up the bulk of the setup. This is the Lo-Free Flow 84 Lite. Now, I bought this keyboard. I do slightly regret it, but I just can't find any really good alternatives. So if someone has a recommendation, drop it below in the comments. But this is a silent linear keyboard, mechanical of course. It has a volume rocker, a nice backlight, and it comes with both Mac and Windows Legends. The thing is, I love mechanical keyboards, but I do spend a lot of time just using my laptop and the chiclet keyboard, so I've moved away from using the OnePlus Keychron keyboard, which is built way better. Though one of the reasons why I like this style more is because I'm able to actually tuck it underneath the riser to free up the space on the desk. It's just that for $130 US, its all plastic build does kind of leave me scratching my head at whether this is actually worth the cost, but listen to how this thing actually sounds. Now, I know this thing is going to make some people angry, but I do actually use the Magic trackpad. I like using the trackpad for macOS more than a mouse because of how useful the gestures are. Whether it's for having multiple desktops or scrolling through my timeline in Final Cut, it actually does just feel more natural. I will say it is expensive, but to me, it's worth the price. Now, you're going to see that a lot of the peripherals at the setup are more so audio focused. So whether it's recording voiceovers, editing videos, or listening to music, there's a lot of reasons as to why I made the choices that I did. And I'm actually very pleased with everything that I've selected. Starting with the microphone, you're actually listening to it right now. This is the Audio-Technica AT875R. This isn't something that you'd typically see at a desk setup, but it's totally worth it if you don't have a controlled environment. Because it's a shotgun microphone, it rejects most of the stuff that comes from the sides and what's behind it, and it is picking up directly what's in front. And because it's not a condenser microphone like the Rode PodMic, for example, you don't need something like a cloud lifter or an activator, just an interface that can provide phantom power. It's hooked up to this 5-fine boom arm to keep it out of the way. Aside from how it sounds, I think it looks sick on the desk, and it's a good piece of kit that actually will last me years and has multiple use cases. Something like this is expensive, around $200, which might seem like it's a lot of money for a microphone, but believe me, it's not even close to what shotgun mics could actually run you. I'm using the Scarlett Solo interface to power and drive this mic, as well as the speakers. And the reason why I chose this is because 1, it's super common, so it makes troubleshooting really easy. And 2, all of the inputs like the XLR and TRS connectors are on the rear, so it's all out of the way. Now, I can monitor my voice with it, I can change the volume of my speakers, adjust the microphone gain, and I think for this price, it's one of the best value interfaces that you could buy. Now, these speakers, they're actually insane. Look, I don't make music, I don't need crazy high fidelity monitors with the most accurate response curve, but for around $100, these Edifier MR3s are so good. Not only can they run off of an interface with TRS cables, you can use Bluetooth, the 3.5mm, RCA, and they are seriously good for listening to music or watching videos. Now, I use them to make sure things like my background music isn't drowning out my voice. It's always good to have multiple sources and ways to listen to something, since not everyone is using a similar setup. So it just gives you another point of reference. Mainly, I do use my headphones. I bought these well before I even started the channel. These are the Bear Dynamic DT990 Pros. These are a 250 ohm open back pair. They are insanely comfortable. They are super light, and they're made up of this really nice breathable material, so they never really become tiring to wear. And because they're open back, I don't feel trapped or isolated and cut off from the outside world. Personally, for me, noise cancellation is just for airports and busy streets. When it comes to being at home, the idea of shutting myself off from everything around me is super weird, and it makes me feel kind of uncomfortable. But what this is actually intended for is to give you a wider soundstage. Now, they aren't cheap, but again, as far as actual professional headphones go, they're not priced badly at all in my opinion, and they're definitely worth looking into if you want a pair of headphones that will last you multiple years. Now, as for the display, this is the Samsung Odyssey G8 OLED. It's a 165Hz 34-inch OLED ultrawide monitor, and it's 1440p. That was a mouthful. For me, the resolution is fine. On Mac, it could be a little sharper due to the scaling. It's not pixel perfect, but it is a fantastic monitor. It's super bright, the contrast is amazing, the refresh rate is very smooth. It even comes with a remote and does some pretty interesting smart TV-like features. Now, while this display is on the more expensive side, you actually can get versions from a couple of years or so ago for a lot less. My buddy recently just picked one up for around 500 US. I will say, I bought this around 2 years ago or so, and it's still holding really strong. Ideally, I would want to upgrade this so that I could get a resolution bump, but I'm also a really big fan of how the ultrawide monitor actually works for me when it comes to editing videos, because I see my entire timeline. Now, here's another little pro tip. A monitor light bar. There's a couple really expensive ones that people like to show off. This one does pretty much everything that those do, and it's like 40 bucks. It not only has a front-facing light to brighten up your desk, but it also has a backlight to throw some light on the wall. And look, full transparency here, I thought these things were stupid. But if you work a lot at night, or you're just at your desk for a long period of time, having your desk be well lit and what's behind your display goes a long way to help reduce eye strain. And to be honest, I think it just makes the whole desk look a lot cooler. Now, to the right, I call this the ugly corner. I have, not that this is ugly, but the Flexispot cabinet, which I use to store things like camera equipment and tax documents and all of that boring stuff. But on top of that, I have the Synology server. Listen, Synology sent this over a long time ago. It's something that I've only recently implemented. I haven't had all the time to get around the learning curve, but I would like to ideally talk about this more on the channel in the future. But I use this to back up all of my content and all the assets that I use in videos in case that I need to grab them again. And it's nice to just have a safe place to store everything that I've worked on, because I've killed an SSD and it's not fun. Now, the NAS, the display, and the peripherals are all connected to the CalDigit TS4 Thunderbolt dock. This is what makes the entire setup possible to begin with. It's something that's quite literally changed my life, which sounds like I'm being kind of pretentious or whatever, but I'm being dead serious. It does have 90 watts of power delivery for my MacBook, has 2.5 gig Ethernet, which makes the connection to my server possible, and has tons of USB-C and USB-A data ports for both power and data. It has a DisplayPort connection as well, which allows me to hook up my display without any funky workarounds, and I have a full-sized microSD card slot right at front and center when I need it. Yes, I've mounted it upside down. Yes, that was an accident, but having the dock and interface in arm's reach is really nice for me, and it's what I need for this setup, and I really think I've perfected it. So yeah, anyways, if you had any questions about this setup or anything in this video, if you want to go ahead and put them in the comments down below. I do a really good job at responding to all of you guys, at least I feel like I do. With that being said, a like and a sub to the channel goes a really long way. Also, if you've watched all the way through, consider dropping, I don't know, a coffee emoji in the comments down below, and I'll just know who all of the real ones are and who actually stuck through. So thank you for watching this video. See you in the next one, and peace out.